Hello everyone, Kristina here. Welcome to day 11 of the holiday card series for 2025. This is the last live for the holiday card series this year. There'll be one more day, day 12 on Christmas Eve, so come back for that. Tonight, we're going to be playing with some products from Hero Arts. They kind of came out with like some elf-inspired products this last fall. And when I saw them, I think Jennifer McGuire showed them to me. She may have actually used them in one of her lives. I was like, I need to use those. I need to make an elf-inspired card because elf, I think it's one of my most favorite holiday movies. I also really love White Christmas, but elf is probably maybe like a close second. And I think I watch elf more than White Christmas. So in the chat or in the comments, let me know, do you like the movie Elf? Have you seen Elf? There are some out there who have never seen it. I wish I could see it for the first time again. It's just so fun. But it's also one of those movies where you can watch over and over and over again. Okay, so here we go. Let's jump into it. Okay, so this is these are some of the products from the kind of elf-inspired products that Hero Arts came out with. This stamp set is called Elf Culture. And there's matching dies for it right there. And then this one is called Sassy Elf Costume. And we're only using these 3 little dies today just to make the smaller little hat. Okay, so I've planned out what I'm doing for today's card. And I'm going to be using a distress blended background. And I'm going to do some white heat embossing on top. So because of that, we're going to do that first because we want to give it a chance to dry on its own. Super Deer Tracker, that's a fun name, says seen bits and pieces but never sat down to watch it. It's a good one. I highly recommend if you find yourself watching a movie while you're wrapping presents Christmas Eve or, you know, the next couple of days, put on Elf. It's just a good one. It's a good background. I mean, you don't have to pay attention too much if you don't want to. It's a good one. So I'm using distress inks, like I said, and I might even not do a full ink blend. I might just take it right to the paper. I don't know. I haven't quite decided yet. Okay, I'm going to start with peacock feathers. And I'm going to blend it. I kind of want to have the peacock feathers about right here and have it blend out to chip sapphire and then black soot. So I want it to be really intense right there in the middle. Let me zoom in. We're a little zoomed out today. Let's zoom in. So I'm going to blend out past where I want that chip sapphire to come in because I want to give it plenty of opportunity to overlap and blend really well. Blend that out. Okay, so I've got quite a bit of color on there. I'm going to switch over to chipped sapphire. And then I'll bring in the black soot just a little bit here at the end, just to darken up the edges. Do you guys see that? I think that's where my lotion covered fingers were touching the paper. That's hilarious. Well, I plan to cut this down a little bit, so I'm not too concerned. And maybe the black soot will cover up some of that. Kind of want like this kind of glowing spotlight. That's where I'm going to put the greeting. In fact, let's make sure it's large enough for the grading. It's going to be this one right here. It's just nice knowing we share an affinity for elf culture. It cracks me up. We're just going to put it right there. That looks like that'll be perfect. I'm going to intensify it by bringing in some black soot. And I don't need a ton of this. In fact, like I said, I am going to be cutting it down. So I might not even get much of this black in what I cut. Okay, so I'm going to set this aside and let it dry as much as possible. I kind of anticipate I will have to use my heat tool to speed dry it, but I wanted to do this first, get it out of the way, because then when we do everything else on the card, that'll just be giving it time to dry. Okay, so these are Alta New adhesive sheets. I think I'm going to cut it to just a little bit larger than an A2 card front. And then we're going to put on some little strips of cardstock. There we go. All right, we'll just put this down like that, and then it will just adhere straight down onto it. I've done some prepping. We have silver and red glitter cardstock strips, and I'm gonna put them on this just like in a little diagonal peppermint pattern. I'm hoping this will look okay with the background I've got going. It's gonna be a pretty colorful card. All right. So now I've got that adhesive, and I guess I could just start right from the center. And then I'm just gonna do a red strip followed by a silver strip. I thought about doing white glitter strips, but I am going to be coloring the images from the stamp set, and they're going to be stamped on some white cardstock, and I didn't want the white glitter to not match the white cardstock, so that's the reason why I didn't do that. Cut off that little piece to do the red right here. Perfect. All right, so I've got this super glittery peppermint stripe going, and now let's die cut it. I'll just use my A2 die from my Essentials dies, and I'm kind of thinking if I do want to keep the center, I could take my A2 thin frame size, which I'm going to use later anyway. I'll use the, like, I'm going to have the outer, this like middle size, which is actually from the More Thin Frames die set. That's the one I'm going to be using. So I'll take this smaller one, and I'm just going to have it cut out the center, and then I can save this and use it on a different card. All right, let's hope that cut through everything. Okay. Lovely. So I'm eventually going to have this like on it about like that. Okay, using my MISTI, and then back to the stamp set. So we definitely need the Etch-a-Sketch, and we need the book and maple syrup. So random. If you've never seen the movie, you're like, what? Maple syrup? What is that supposed to mean? Okay. I don't think I'm going to do the raccoon or the little Santa hat. I think I'll just do this because I have a couple other die cuts we're using. And I think with the way these are arranged, I could possibly stamp them twice without having to move the stamps in my MISTI. For a black ink, I'm using SSS Stamp Intense Black. I want to get the Etch-a-Sketch a little bit better. Lovely. And then I'm just going to rotate. And I think, oh yeah, we're far enough away that we can stamp again. Today's card is one of those cards that I would not do duplicates of. Too many different elements. Too many. Do we have all 4 food groups here? We do. We have candy canes, candy corn, syrup, and candy. So it's candy, candy canes, candy corn, and syrup. Those are the 4 main food groups for elves. Is that what it is? It's food groups? The 4 main food groups. Yep, that's the one. Okay, let's hit this with the heat tool so we can start coloring right away. I'm thinking since the Etch-a-Sketch will be red, let's maybe have this book here be green. Actually, there are a couple more items that we need to be coloring that I die cut in advance. Well, for one thing, I die cut some snowflakes. I probably will only use one of these, but it's from my Snow Flurries die set that was in last year's holiday class at Online Card Classes. I thought a snowflake would look nice. It made me think of all the paper snowflakes that Buddy creates when he stays at Gimbel's overnight. And then I have the pieces to create Buddy's hat. So I just cut them out of white, and I thought I would use my Copic markers to color them. So I'm going to take a little bit of adhesive, and I'll just, I'll just do a couple little rows, and I'm gonna take off some of that stick because I don't want it to be super sticky. This is when I wish my repositionable adhesive that I ordered had arrived. Actually, you know what? It did arrive. It arrived today, but I haven't unboxed it. Okay, so we've got both hats, lightest kind of green, and I'll just come in from the side. Okay. Then I'm going to take the next green. That looks like fluorescent on camera. That's crazy. I mean, it is pretty bright, but all right. And then I'll come in from the other side. One more thing that I need to cut out before we move on. I need to do a little gold edge using my thin frame size. This is actually from the more thin frames, like the middle size in between these two is from the more thin frames. We'll just die cut this really quick. Okay. All right, there's our little gold frame. I'm going to take the same frame and I'm going to be cutting it out of this one, but maybe I want to do my greeting on there first. That might be a good idea. We'll wait, we won't die cut that quite yet. I already know this is not going to be dry, so I'm going to hit it with my heat tool. Okay, let's do a little test run before we do any stamping, just to make sure that we are good to move on. I'm going to do my anti-static powder tool right over the area where I'll be stamping eventually. And then let's do a test run with the powder. We want to make sure that the powder slides right off before we do our heat embossing. Oh, I forgot to turn my fan off. Okay, just turned the fan off. All right, I think that's sliding off pretty well. Just in case, I can go like this with a clean paintbrush and just get off any powder, but that looks pretty good. And I didn't get too much powder all over my work surface. Getting it all over my hands, however. All right, I'm gonna set this aside for just a minute while we do our stamping. So now I'm going to our cute greeting. And it's gonna go right here. This little grid transparency thing. And it helps you get things on there straight. There we go. If I can pick this up without chipping a nail, here we go. All right, so I'm going to prep it with an anti-static powder tool once again. And then we are stamping in white pigment ink. You could probably do this in gold as well, but I think I'm going to do it in white. Like do the embossing in white, just because I think it'll be really, really bright on this background. Okay, and the fan is no longer on, so the embossing powder won't go flying everywhere, or at least it shouldn't. Perfect. So cute. I love that. All right, I'm gonna let this cool, and then I'm gonna use my microfiber cloth to take away any of that excess anti-static powder that's kind of sticking around. Now we're gonna cut our background. I'm using the frame die, and I think most of those little fingerprint marks are going to get chopped off. Okay, so now we have that interior piece. I'm gonna grab a card front. So this is a top folding card front, just randomly, that's the one I got. We're first going to put our little frame, our little peppermint frame on there. Okay, that's kind of a fun frame just by itself. Okay, then we're going to be adhering this over the top, and then we'll put the gold frame on it. So got a little glue there, lovely. We'll put our gold frame. So we can do a little of this. All right, before I do anything else, I'm going to create the little hat. Little dabs of glue. All All right, and then I just got to hold this down until it adheres because it doesn't want to. But I do feel like it needs a white little outer frame just because everything else has a little white thing, right? So I'm going to glue it to this cardstock and then just fussy cut around it. And it will kind of, it won't stick out like a sore thumb. Ta-da! Or you know what makes it stick out like a sore thumb? It doesn't have black lines. Whatever. I think it'll help it stand out on the card itself. So I kind of have to cover the entire snowflake with glue. We'll let that dry. We'll glue these other ones on. This just goes to show that there are a plethora of arrangements you can use with all the little images. All right, is that glued on there enough now that I can cut it off? I think it is. There we go. Talk about cute. I love it so much. So here is the finished card today. Kind of a lot of elements going into one card, but it came together really quickly. I think there were a few things that made that possible. The coordinating dyes. I think also using Copic markers or an alcohol marker made the coloring really fast. And then already having those glitter strips cut, that made it go really fast too. So that is the finished card for today, for day 11 of the holiday card series. So I hope you'll come back on Wednesday on Christmas Eve for day 12. I have yet to actually film that card, but I have plans. The last day of the holiday card series is always special, so come back and check that out. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.